Greetings, my little parasocial penguins of the art community. It will seem the year is already off to a great start for everyone else except AI image generators, since apparently we're not calling them AI artists anymore in 2026, and companies after companies are now widely banning the use of AI generated art and have been moving in a totally different direction for the foreseeable future these past few weeks. And if that wasn't bad enough for these self-proclaimed AI artists, what seems to be a new method to spot fake AI art is now in circulation within the art community on Twitter after an account that supposedly seemed to be posting normal regular drawings and fan art started posting art that looked rather different, leading to Twitter users raising their eyebrows while looking closer into these so-called drawings. This situation was brought to my attention by fellow colleague and YouTube art community yapper Kat Liente, also known as Cat and Chat, and you should definitely go subscribe to her if you haven't, after she posted a video talking about the situation and taking a look at the alleged AI drawings the Twitter account has been posting. But before we even go ahead and get into the video, I'd like to briefly wish myself a happy birthday. Thank you very much. Thank you for all the birthday wishes. Yes, today is my birthday. I turned a year older today and I can already feel all the gray hairs creeping in at the back of my head. But before I practically turn bald all over, I want to take all the best pictures I can. So I've started posting personal pictures on my Instagram account called Cold Turkey. Why that name? I have no idea. But go wish me a happy birthday under the comments, leave a like on the picture, and wish me the best birthday I can possibly have in the year 2026. Now that we're done with all the beautiful birthday wishes,
is there now a new way to detect whether an art piece is AI generated or not? Let's take a look at this. So this is the art piece in question that kind of started this conversation. It's posted by a user named Kuchita_Teya. Again, before getting into this, I just want to say, don't send hate to any parties involved, no death threats, don't bully people, don't do any of that, okay? But this piece in question got 1.6 thousand likes, almost a million views actually, only 7 comments, and you can only actually see 2 comments. This is always a bit interesting when it comes to like art pieces on Twitter, when the ratio of like likes to comments is wild, as in there's like almost no comments. But this piece, if you look at it, it looks hand-drawn, it has like a very sketchy style. You can see like cross-hatching happening in aspects like the shading for the eyes. And if we were to, use the eyeball test to determine is this AI generated or not, it would be a little hard to tell.
Now, judging from some of the other images this, dare I say, artist has been posting on their accounts, I would be inclined to assume they're an actual artist. Most of the drawings all look the same and maintain almost the same consistency all through. The art style looks the same across different drawings for as far as I could scroll, and nothing genuinely screamed to me as AI or generated art for the most part. Taking a closer look at the drawings, the line art is mostly solid and has a lot of line weight to it, just like how a regular artist will draw. It even has the same little quirks and looseness that comes from drawing often and being confident in your line art. The features of the body and proportions mostly look good as well, and naturally, I would assume this person has a solid understanding of the fundamentals of art and is really good at simplifying their drawings. And there are many other real artists who also draw in a similar art style as this, which is possibly what's going to make it really hard to differentiate if this is AI art or an actual artist.
Like, we have the line work, it's a very sketchy line work, which is really cute. The line work breaks in some aspects and it doesn't look like it's like a artistic choice of you took your pen off the drawing tablet and then continue making your brushstrokes lower, but it's kind of as if the actual color of whatever object the line work was for, like the hair, is like replacing some of the brush strokes. Like you can see here, kind of looks like they colored over it. Same thing with here, it kind of looks like the line work was like erased in some way, rather than it being like a conscious choice. There are some like speckles that could be artifacts. We have like a dot here, some speckling happening down here, a little dot here. Benefit of doubt, maybe they're drawing on the iPad. Their hand touched the iPad and accidentally left a brush stroke, who knows?
Looking closer at the drawings, the one thing that stands out to me is how some parts of the line work doesn't seem to make sense and follow perspective, as it looks rather forced. Some parts are skewed compared to the rest of the drawings, but maybe we can just give them the benefit of doubt that they drew this themselves and then just use the transform tool to warp it and place it in perspective, which is something some artists occasionally do just to save time. Another thing that stands out to me is how they draw hands, which has always been a big giveaway when spotting AI generated art. A lot of people have mentioned this multiple times across social media. My friend Thumin also has a long thread just talking about how terrible AI drawn hands are and why it's a dead giveaway that the art was made with AI. By the way, I wonder how Thumin is doing. If you ever get to watch this, Thumin, I hope you're doing okay. Probably should go check up on her after this video, to be honest.
There's also some aspects of colors bleeding into other aspects, like here, you know, the wing, a like beigey, tanny color, but it's kind of like some of it bled into the gray of where the wing is. Here we can see some of the gray bled into the tan aspect, but you know, again, maybe the artist is just being a little bit rushed with this piece because it has a very sketchy look. One thing is like the iris rendering, it looks relatively even, you know, so on first glance to determine whether this piece is AI generated or not, it's pretty hard to tell. It's one of those where it's like, you know, maybe it could be, maybe it couldn't. I just try to err on benefit of doubt. I always typically would be like, oh, maybe it's legitimate, you know, until other works might prove otherwise.
So far so good. A lot of the art on this page mostly looks to me like a real artist. It feels natural and has a certain simplicity as how normal artists draw. And if you're not desperately looking closely and trying to find parts of the drawing that looks like AI, you will definitely assume it's real art, which it looks to be, especially when you compare it alongside what we're used to seeing as AI art.
This quote retweet by username FAI_0, writing, "The art may be hard to understand, but it's AI enhanced. The data are in the replies." And this is really interesting. 5.4 million views. They write, "The divisive factor is that even the white background has subtle colors attached, and increasing the contrast and saturation brings out noise. This is a phenomenon that would be impossible if everything were drawn digitally. Even with noise during posting, this kind of color doesn't appear. Please try it with a white background." And that is so interesting, because if you look at this piece, this looks to be a completely white background, but somehow there's so much noise that appears the moment you jack up the contrast and the saturation. How would that happen with a completely white background?
Now this is very interesting. According to the said tweet, turning up the contrast and saturation to the highest brings out the noise in an image and reveals if the drawing was made with AI or not. Now that's interesting, not only because I feel like this method might not be completely reliable when trying to spot an AI generated drawing, especially since we're not using any data or software that automatically detects AI using an algorithm. Instead, we're just making extreme image adjustments and then praying to God if it works or not. I'm going to have to try this myself and see if it works. So I have this drawing which I made sometime last year and posted on my art Instagram, which I'm going to throw up on the screen, and all of you can go follow me on there if you haven't and want to see more of my art. And I also have this image which was made by AI, and I know that because I downloaded it from an account that posts AI images on Twitter. Now both of these images have white backgrounds, and since this image was made by me, it shouldn't have any artifacts, right? Well, no artifacts. The white background is still pure white, and the only thing that has changed so far is the colors on the character, which looks absolutely ridiculous and is actively straining the very fibers of my eyes every moment I spend looking at it. I also applied the same filter to my other drawings, and I don't notice any strange or weird looking artifacts in the drawing aside from the ugly looking skin tones and oversaturated colors. But when I apply the same filter to the AI looking images, things start to look it's a lie. It's a big lie. Things don't look interesting at all. They both literally look the same. The white background is still white. No artifacts, no hidden codes, nothing. The only difference I can find is when you look in some parts of the AI image, you can see some of the pixels breaking apart, which could be due to the pixels going crazy after I boosted the saturation, and also because this is a low quality image downloaded off of Twitter. But I can only speculate at this point. I don't know. Do you guys really think these are the artifacts that they were talking about, or is this just normal pixelation you find in low quality images, especially when the colors begin to band? But judging from my personal test, I can tell you that this method is definitely not reliable for spotting AI art. I believe you can spot AI art better by just using your eyes or using an AI detection tool, which also isn't as reliable, but it's mostly closer for the most part. Kat also tried this test out for herself using some of her drawings, so let's see if she got different results from me.
So I went ahead and tried it with my own art. This is like a pattern I made for my friend of their cats. I printed this on tea towels and accidentally shipped it to my family home. So it do be like that sometimes. But like, if I turn up the contrast, Wow, the contrast goes up. You can see where I did not notice that, where I like colored out of the lines here. This is what you get when you don't double check your work very carefully. And then hue and saturation. All right, let me turn the saturation up. Wow. This is a bit of an eyesore. But you see here, like besides like the human error that I made with coloring outside of the tail here, there's no artifacting happening in the background. Now you might be like, okay, but like what if you put noise on your art piece? This is a piece that I made. I was like on a flight back from China or something like that. 13 hours, okay, so I had time to kill. There's noise on this. Let's up the saturation. Oh God, that's an eyesore. Okay, let's up the contrast. Even more of an eyesore. There's like a bit of fuzziness happening here. I think this is a combination of the noise and the fact that I painted it really fast and that I threw a massive Gaussian blur over it because I hate painting backgrounds. So like if I blur it really heavily, then you won't notice the fact that I completely chopped up the K-barbecue grilling tables behind her. I really don't know how to replicate the artifacts if I were trying. Actually though, after doing this, I noticed that I left another brushstroke over here. See, it didn't end up looking like this anyways. And I think the reason why an AI generated piece would end up having a look like this to it is because it doesn't draw like the way a human does, right? It's not selecting a color, grabbing a digital brush and then boop, 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 painting with it. No, it's just generate pixel, 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 pixel. Okay, we're done.
Now, this was my initial assumption as well. But since both AI generated art and real digital artists all make art using pixels, it's hard to specify that as the sole reason why the AI drawing looks the way it does. And I'm sure that's why both the images I tested ended up looking closely the same for the most part. Now, unless the person who made this edit was using some sort of filter or specific app that forces the pixels to just break up and bring out some sort of code in the AI image, I'm not so sure this can be an actual plausible way to detect AI art.
And so some users are following up, and this person says, oh, I see. At a glance, even with a solid colored background, if the saturation and contrast are cranked all the way up and there's noise all over it, it's a quick and easy way to tell. If it's hand-drawn with a solid color background, then it's purely and literally a solid color. And deliberately tweaking the hue ever so slightly would add unnecessary steps with no meaning, unless there's specific intent. And this is translated, but I think again, the meaning is like subtly shifting hue colors pixel by pixel, right? Because like the entire canvas is like an astronomical amount of pixels. Like there's no reason if you're making a white background, you're gonna make like 1 pixel like white plus a tiny bit of red, the next pixel white with a tiny bit of blue. There's literally like no reason a human being would want to do that. It's just so difficult with no reasonable intent behind it, I feel like.
This is confusing. So if the background is pure white, cranking the contrast and saturation won't exactly work. But then if there are other colors or subtle hue shifts, then the chances of it working are increased from nil to slim. This is really confusing. So I also have this image from the AI Twitter account, which happens to be Take a Wild Guess, generated by AI. And now I'm going to make the same adjustments to it as the previous images, which is basically increasing the contrast and saturation. Keep in mind this was a downloaded image, so the chances of the end results being pixelated should be for a tad bit at least higher, right? Well, the same thing happens again. Aside from the super saturated colors around the image, there seems to be almost no pixelation going on in the drawing. The background, which has a mix of colors, also doesn't seem to be affected at all, aside from a little pixelation happening around the transitions of the colors, which is due to what I think is color banding. But to be honest, this is not really the best way to spot AI art. Who even has the time to just keep on downloading AI images and then boosting the saturation and contrast? It just seems a little cumbersome and isn't the best use of your time.
There's people in the comments that are calling out like other artists. This person's art piece, you know, like when you jack up the saturation and contrast, suddenly it has all of this artifacting and hue shifting, which like also I don't know this artist, right? But on one glance of this, I could basically tell this is AI generated because the eyes, this eye is completely like caved in comparison to this eye. There's a lot of artifacting happening on the face. The hair is like warping. This is like a AI's attempt at making hand-drawn art, but this is all compressed in a really weird way. So then it makes sense when you see all of a sudden, you know, there's all of this like shifting happening in the face.
I'm still super confused by how they're able to pull out all these pixels by just boosting the saturation and contrast. I mean, I could already tell this sort of looked like an AI image just because of how broken the pinky finger looked and the weird tangents almost every single strand of hair has, and also just because of how the face was drawn, since a lot of AI art from Twitter usually draws faces pieces like this in the same art style, which also makes it increasingly difficult to differentiate artists who also draw in a style similar to this. But for the most part, if you look closely and start to scan the drawings, you can always see the signs.
Another user adds, I think it could serve as one of the pieces for evidence of AI, like close-up of the face, like how there's subtle remnants of redrawn lines on the mouth, nose, or eyes after several attempts, and the back of the tights, since the data was in JPEG. Do you think it's possible? And another user adds, to clarify, I'm not judging based solely on noise. I'm fully aware that even hand-drawn artists can produce some noise, but this person has numerous other suspicions beyond that. So I went ahead and replied. And then OP quote retweeted that, adding, with this method, you can identify AI artists to some extent. For example, Sakunana and IQ Mofuari. I'm not reading these names correctly. Here we can see Sakunana's work. The white background, the allegedly white background, is completely filled with these sort of particles and artifacting happening. Here we have another user, Aiko, and the same artifacting is also visible in their work as well. OP also adds, Sakunana is a monster who keeps claiming hand-drawn even after being warned by the actual artist whose style the trained model imitates. They regularly update on Pixiv without labeling it as AI and deliberately spaces out the frequency so many fans think it's hand-drawn.
Oh wow, look how many artifacts showed up out of nowhere from that white background. How are they able to get that many artifacts out of the drawing? Like, I tried so many times and I still couldn't get more than a few pixels where colors were abandoned. I guess it means they're either A, using a different drawing program to edit these images, or B, maybe just duplicating the image and then saturating it multiple times over. Or then again, they could just be using a totally different method to bring out all these pixels and detect if the drawing is AI.
So a user adds, just checked it out now, but even illustrations with nightshade applied, the filter for screwing over AI, can have noise added to the blank areas depending on how you handle them. So be careful and judge them properly. If you're used to it, you can spot the nightshade filter with the naked eye. You know what I thought would be really funny to also test this with? Because my whole channel, right, is covering AI art, AI scammers, people who generate. Let me just use this test on a couple artist pieces. Artists who we've looked at and we've been like, yo, I'm very certain this is AI generated. Okay, this one is really interesting. This is the piece that we know is AI generated. Actually, I covered it in a different video, but the metadata literally has the prompt in the metadata, so we know it's AI generated. But this one's really interesting because you can see like the artifact happening in the line work itself. All of this, like the legs here, on the sleeves here. So this account is an account called Morin, or It's Morin. This is one of like 4 accounts based in Cyprus that are all suspected to be this like AI scamming art ring where they all have Patreons, all made around the same time. Yeah, so let's take a look at this one, okay? Oh, this is interesting. What's happening in the neck? Where's all this artifact coming from? The chair. Because I jacked up the contrast, it's actually harder to see. But if I lower the contrast, like you can see all the artifacts within the chair and on the clothing. There's more alongside the hair and the keyboard, around the chips. Oh yeah, not to mention on the monitor itself. What did I say?
Well, as you can see, after going through multiple tests, Kat was finally able to find the drawing that revealed the same pixels as the users on Twitter. Although it still didn't look exactly the same as the other images, and the pixels still looked to be in the places where the colors were transitioning, but so far it looked almost the same and was close. Now, does this mean every single image you use this method on is definitely AI? Absolutely not. Some images or drawings might bring up more pixels than others, especially when the drawing has a lot of colors in it and different gradations of colors as well. And there are a plethora of artists who draw in art style that have been completely ripped off by AI, which makes differentiating them from actual artists and AI art a little bit harder than usual. I think this trick isn't a perfect method to spot AI art, especially since 2 people could try to tweak the same image and end up with completely different results. If you're really struggling to detect if a drawing is made with AI or not, you can always fall back to the tested and trusted method, like looking at how they render hands and feet, looking for inconsistencies in the line art, looking for weird converging lines that don't necessarily make sense, obvious tangents in the drawing that would normally be avoided by any artist, excessively detailed hair strands, and if the drawing just looks a little too perfect and good to be true. Most times you might end up spotting someone using AI, but you also have to remember some artists are just that good at drawing and painting and making perfect looking images way better than the rest of us mortals. So just keep that in mind when you're accusing someone of using AI art. Well, it looks like you made it to the end of this video. If you enjoyed this video, please leave it a like, share the video with a friend who is also trying to spot AI art, and subscribe to the channel if you're new here. With all that being said, I'll see all you pretty penguins in the next video. Bye!